The truth about having it all isn't work-life balance. As I was digging into this upcoming book on modern living, the author made a point that hit me like a ton of bricks. Chasing balance is exactly what's making you miserable.
It's a complete scam.
In the next 20 minutes, you are going to learn why everything you've been taught about juggling your schedule is a trap. And we're going to give you a radically different framework to use instead.
Right, we're going to dismantle this whole myth that you need to be a perfectly balanced machine every single day.
Exactly. I mean, think about the pressure you feel when you wake up. You think of work-life balance, and it's like,
Like a mathematical equation you're failing at.
yes. Imagine holding your smartphone, right? And you are trying to run 10 high-drain apps simultaneously. You're streaming a 4K movie, you're playing a heavy graphics video game, the GPS is running.
You've got downloads going in the background.
Right, you're doing all this while desperately trying to keep the battery at 100%. The operating system just isn't designed for it. The phone gets physically hot to the touch, everything starts lagging, and eventually
The whole system just crashes.
the screen goes black. That's what we're doing to ourselves.
That smartphone analogy really gets to the core of our biology, because the source material we're looking at today explains why we even attempt this impossible standard.
And it comes down to a couple of massive psychological drivers.
Yeah, exactly. Two main things. First, our natural human desire for comfort. And second, our intense fear of missing out. FOMO.
Which, FOMO feels like this trendy internet age buzzword, but the underlying anxiety there is actually ancient.
Oh, totally ancient.
Yeah.
Evolutionarily speaking, fear of missing out is tied directly to tribal survival.
Like staying alive in the wilderness.
Exactly. If you didn't know what the rest of your tribe was doing, or if you missed out on crucial social bonding, you risked being ostracized, which historically meant you die alone in the woods.
Yeah. Wow. So it's not just, oh no, I missed a fun party. Your brain thinks you're going to die.
Right. So today, when you're hyper-focused on a big career goal and you miss a friend's dinner, your amygdala, the fear center in your brain, just fires off a massive stress response.
It's telling you that you are losing your social standing.
Exactly. So because we crave total comfort and we're terrified of social death, we adopt what the author calls the hardcore approach.
Okay, that was our setup. The
Yeah.
problem we're all facing. Now let's look at how this hardcore approach actually manifests in your daily life. It usually looks like people trying to mathematically slice up their day.
The infamous 8-8-8 split.
8 solid hours of work, 8 hours of recreation or personal time, and 8 hours of sleep.
Which is just a bizarre way to treat a human being.
It sounds like a factory schedule.
Because it literally is. That 8-8-8 split is not based on neuroscience. It has nothing to do with human psychology.
Wait, really? Where did it come from then?
It was coined by a labor rights activist named Robert Owen in 1817.
1817.
Yes, right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution. Picture a literal steam-powered factory, soot everywhere. The slogan was literally designed to keep factory workers from dying of exhaustion on assembly lines.
Oh my gosh. So it was basically a survival baseline, not a recipe for a good life.
Exactly. It was never meant to be a blueprint for thriving in a modern, highly complex knowledge economy. But here we are, 200 years later, internalizing this industrial factory setting as the ultimate standard for personal success.
We are trying to apply a 2-century-old factory rule to our emotional lives. And human energy just doesn't work like a conveyor belt.
No, it doesn't.
You don't have this perfectly steady stream of focus to divide into neat little thirds. Some days, a huge project at work drains your mental battery to absolute zero in 4 hours.
Or a family crisis demands 100% of your emotional bandwidth.
Right, leaving literally nothing left for the gym or your inbox. And this fluctuation, this reality of being human, is where the psychological damage really takes hold.
Because if you bought into the myth of the perfectly balanced day, any deviation feels like a moral failure.
Yes, the guilt. When you inevitably drop a ball, you are just consumed by it.
You miss a workout because a client called with a genuine emergency, and instead of just shrugging and saying, oh, well, work needed me, you spend the whole evening punishing yourself.
You feel like a total failure.
Because that rigid balancing act is a false safety net. It
Yeah.
completely ignores the reality of cognitive load. So this really pure desire to live a good life gets twisted into a daily source of guaranteed failure.
The gap between what you think you should be doing and what you actually can do is just filled entirely with cortisol. You're just stressed all the time.
Exactly.
Let's quickly recap what we just covered before we move on. The perfectly balanced day is an industrial-era myth, and trying to achieve it just floods you with guilt and stress. So what is the fix?
Right. If the calendar apps aren't working, what do we do?
The author's solution is a complete paradigm shift. And this brings us to the core flip of this entire deep dive. Stop chasing daily balance entirely, and instead embrace what they call seasons of imbalance.
Seasons of endless.
The core philosophy here is this. Greatness requires disproportionate focus for a limited time.
Which completely goes against everything the self-help industry has been preaching for 2 decades.
Totally. And I have to push back on this a little bit because the second I hear disproportionate focus or imbalance, my alarm bells start ringing.
Sure, it sounds risky.
Isn't telling you to embrace imbalance just a fancy way of giving you a hall pass to become a toxic workaholic? I mean, how is leaning entirely into one thing any different from the hustle culture that's already burning everybody out?
That is the absolute most common misinterpretation of this concept. It's a dangerous trap to fall into.
Yeah.
The difference between a healthy season of imbalance and just toxic, soul-crushing burnout hinges entirely on 4 specific words in that philosophy.
Which 4 words?
For a limited time.
Oh, for a limited time.
Right. A season, by definition, has a hard start date and a hard end date. Winter doesn't last forever. Summer eventually fades into autumn.
That makes a lot of sense.
Embracing a season of imbalance isn't about permanently surrendering your life to chaos. It's not about committing to endless overwork with no light at the end of the tunnel.
So it's about being intentional.
Highly intentional, calculated asymmetry. You actively choose to be imbalanced to achieve something significant in one specific area, rather than shallowly engaging with 10 different things and making 0 progress on any of them.
It's the difference between sprinting toward a finish line and just running on a treadmill until you physically collapse.
Beautifully said, yes.
Like if I know I'm unbalanced because I'm launching a new business, but I also know this specific launch phase ends in exactly 90 days.
You can endure that.
Yeah, I can endure that. My family can endure that. But if I just vaguely say, well, my life is just work now, indefinitely.
That is a completely different, very dark psychological state.
The psychology of having a finish line is incredibly powerful. Knowing there's an end date prevents that chronic, low-grade despair that causes true burnout.
You aren't dropping balls by accident anymore and feeling guilty about it. You are intentionally setting a few balls down on the floor for a little while so you can carry one truly heavy, important thing across the finish line.
Okay, I love that imagery. But translating that into the real world feels pretty daunting.
It does. It requires a system.
Because understanding you need a season of imbalance is one thing, but how do you actually execute that without your physical health collapsing or your marriage falling apart?
Right, you need guardrails.
And the author doesn't leave us hanging. The text provides a 3-step execution framework. Let's move to the first pillar of this framework. Pillar number 1 is mindset. Specifically, you must explicitly label your current season.
Labeling it is crucial. The author gives great examples, like calling it the hustle season if you're going for a big promotion, or the family season if you just brought a new baby home.
The act of giving it a title sounds almost too simple, you know? Like, how does a label fix my life?
It sounds simple, but the cognitive science behind it is profound. It's a concept known in psychology as cognitive framing.
How so?
Well, how you frame an experience literally dictates how your brain processes the stress of that experience.
Oh, I see. Think about the internal shift that happens when you apply a label. Let's say I wake up and I've consciously decided I am currently in a hustle season for the next 2 months.
Okay, you've set the frame.
Then later that week, I have to work late on a Tuesday night and I miss a casual get-together with friends. Because I framed my reality with that label, that crushing guilt we talked about earlier, it's practically gone.
Exactly. Because your internal expectation was already set to prioritize work.
I labeled the season for this exact scenario.
You gave yourself psychological permission to be imbalanced. Without the label, your brain uses the old perfect balance baseline to judge you, and that triggers the guilt.
But with the label, my brain uses the new hustle season baseline.
Right. And neurologically, you might actually experience a slight dopamine reward for skipping the party because your brain recognizes you are successfully adhering to the goal of your defined season.
Wow. So the label literally removes the moral failure aspect of missing out. That is huge.
It really is.
But an expectation in your head isn't going to hold up if your physical reality is constantly fighting your goals. Which brings us to pillar number 2.
Environment.
The physical space. The source material states you must redesign your physical space to heavily favor the current season's goal.
This is where we get into the mechanics of environmental friction.
Yeah.
The human brain is just an incredibly efficient, energy-saving organ.
It's lazy.
Basically, yes. It will almost always take the path of least resistance. So if your physical environment demands high willpower to maintain your focus, your willpower will eventually deplete and you will fail.
So your space needs to be a direct physical reflection of your disproportionate focus.
You have to manipulate the friction. If you're in the hustle season, you need to remove every single ounce of physical friction between you and your work. And you need to massively increase the physical friction between you and your distractions.
What does that look like, practically?
Consider your visual cues. Neuroscience shows us that just having a smartphone visible on your desk, even if it's turned off and face down, requires cognitive effort to ignore.
Wait, really? Even if it's off?
Yes, a portion of your brain is actively working to suppress the urge to check it. That is cognitive load you are wasting.
So convert that into a sensory experience for a deep writing season, for example. Your workspace shouldn't be a dining table covered in junk mail, an Xbox controller, and 3 half-read books.
No, that's a minefield of distraction.
Imagine physically clearing that desk until you run your hands over it and all you feel is smooth, bare wood. There is nothing but a keyboard in the dead center of your vision. Imagine taking the TV remote, walking into a completely different room, putting it in a drawer, and hearing the heavy click of that drawer shutting. You are making the distraction tangibly, physically annoying to access.
You engineer your environment so that the easiest, most natural thing to do in that room is the exact thing your season requires.
I love that.
And this applies to the family season as well, right?
Oh, absolutely.
If your disproportionate focus is on your kids for a season, reducing friction toward that goal might mean intentionally leaving your work laptop locked in the trunk of your car when you pull into the driveway.
You're making it physically difficult to casually check spreadsheets when you're supposed to be playing with your kids.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the internal mindset managed with the label. That was pillar 1. We've got the physical space managed through environmental friction. That's pillar 2. But humans are social creatures.
Very social.
If I am locked in a bare room, entirely focused on a hustle season, my friends and family are just going to think I'm ignoring them.
They'll think you hate them.
Right.
Which brings us to the third and final pillar of execution: social. The text explicitly says you must communicate your season to your family and friends so they understand your absence.
This might actually be the most crucial step for long-term happiness, because uncommunicated boundaries almost always feel like rejection to the people on the receiving end.
That is so true.
If you suddenly stop showing up to things and you haven't explained why, the psychological contract you have with your friends is breached. They assume malicious intent. They assume you just don't care anymore.
The best analogy I can think of for this is the standard out-of-office autoresponder we use for work emails.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Think about it. When a colleague goes on vacation, they put up a message that says, "I'm away from my desk until the 15th. I will not be checking email." When you get that automated reply, you don't get offended.
No, not at all.
You don't feel rejected. You just think, oh, they're on a trip. Good for them. It instantly resets your expectations.
You're providing context for your absence. Exactly. We need to set up an emotional out-of-office responder for our actual lives.
Yes.
If you send a message to your group chat and say, "Hey everyone, I'm entering a massive heads-down hustle season for the next 8 weeks to finally launch this project. I'm going to be totally off the radar, but I can't wait to celebrate with you all when it's done," you have completely managed their expectations up front.
And look at what that explicit communication actually achieves. By explaining the season, and crucially, by implying an end date.
The limited time factor again.
Right. Your absence is categorized in their minds as a planned, temporary sprint rather than personal neglect.
You've protected the relationship by providing psychological safety.
They know you still care about them. You are simply unavailable right now.
It is so much more respectful than just ghosting people because you're too overwhelmed by your tightrope balancing act to reply to a text.
Totally.
So let's pull the camera way, way back here. We've covered a lot. We ditched the 8x8 daily split. We label our season to kill the guilt. We strip the friction out of our physical environment. And we set up our social out-of-office responders.
Those are the mechanics.
Right. So what is the overarching payoff? Where does this actually lead us?
The author provides a really stark conclusion here. The assertion is that a truly meaningful life is built on a foundation of deep, profound commitments. not on shallow, frantic balancing acts.
It's the difference between wading in the shallow end of 10 different pools versus diving to the absolute bottom of the ocean in one.
Exactly. And there is a pretty heavy warning in the text here. It states that if you don't actually know what overarching season you're in, absolutely no calendar trick is going to save you.
You can't hack your way out of it.
No. All the productivity hacks, the Pomodoro timers, the expensive leather-bound planners, they are utterly useless without a guiding, disproportionate focus.
Because you cannot life hack your lack of direction. If you don't know where the ship is going, optimizing the sails literally doesn't matter.
Which is precisely why the author introduces a tool called the Life Seasons Planner in the text. We won't get into the weeds of the product itself today, but its existence really highlights the main takeaway.
Which is what?
You have to shift your perspective from micromanaging your days to macromanaging your life chapters.
You stop looking at the 24 hours of a random Tuesday, agonizing over whether you spent exactly 33% of your day on yourself.
Right, and you start looking at the year, or even the decade.
A fulfilling life isn't achieved by giving 10% of your energy to 10 different things every single day.
Because that just creates a baseline of mediocrity. Nothing truly thrives, and you're constantly exhausted.
True satisfaction comes from giving 90% of your energy to the one thing that matters most in your defined season, making a deep commitment to it, seeing it through to the end, and then intentionally transitioning to the next season.
The much more forgiving way to live.
It brings such a sense of relief, honestly.
Yeah.
Knowing that focus isn't a life sentence, it's just a season, we have permission to put the heavy things down for a while.
We really do. And as we wrap up our deep dive into this material, there's a final, highly revealing exercise I want you to consider.
Let's hear it.
Look back at your digital calendar, your bank statements, and your text messages from the last 2 weeks. Look at exactly where your hours went, what problems consumed your mental energy, and where you spent your money.
Just raw data.
Right. If an absolute stranger were to audit that data, what season would they assume you are currently in?
Oh, wow. That's a mirror right there.
And the truly provocative question is this. Is the season your actions are pointing to the season you actually want to be in? Or are you just blindly exhausting yourself trying to keep a dozen apps running until your battery inevitably dies?
If your daily data doesn't reflect the season you actually want to be living in, it is time to make a deliberate shift. Stop chasing the impossible illusion of a perfectly balanced Tuesday.
Drop the guilt.
Exactly. Yeah. Drop the daily guilt, figure out what matters most right now, and start deciding on your season. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
You've made it this far, so why stop now? There are 2 videos on your screen right now that are perfect for you. Just pick the one that looks most interesting and let's dive back in.